Welcome to our fireside chat today. We are here to talk about Svalbard, and it is my pleasure to turn it over to Tudor Morgan, who will lead the discussion on this journey through this most amazing part of the world. So, Tudor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lee, and welcome, fellow explorers. We have a full house today. I think this is the biggest fireside chat or webinar we have done. We have over 800 of you signed up to hear us and share our stories about Svalbard to give you a bit of, hopefully, a bit of insight into this incredible archipelago in the north. Um, as before we get on to that, I will just do a little introduction to why HX and what makes us different. And then we will also then introduce my fellow presenters. And as Lee said, we have a team in the background answering your questions. Thank you all very much for your pre-questions. That's given us a good lead in terms of how we steer the discussions in this chat. So we'll aim to try and answer questions, but please also, if there are burning questions, of course, put the questions in the chat, and there is a team poised, ready to answer those. As far as HX goes, then we feel that we provide the perfect balance of adventure into these incredible pristine places like Svalbard. Our ships provide you with a very comfortable platform that's very relaxed, very informal, that you will really feel at home. And sustainability is really, really important for us. We really try and minimize the impact of the places we go to, and we also try and give back. So part of that, our journey with HX is that giving back, and we will talk about that later as we go through the webinar. In terms of what these mean in terms of adventure, comfort, and sustainability, here are just a few proof points, as we call them, and particularly in terms of adventure. Svalbard is our home. We like to feel we own Svalbard, which of course is crazy to say that, but we've been operating there for now over almost 130 years. And our ships are built, purpose-built for this. On board, we now have all-inclusive, so you don't have to dip your hands in your pockets, except for a few excursions. Our restaurants on board Fram and Spitsbergen also give you a little bit of variety and help you to do what you want, to enjoy it. And as part of our sustainability, it's not just great for us to say what we do, but we also look at third-party verification. So we do have the highest ranking in environment sustainable ratings of any expedition cruise company. We also banned heavy fuel oil back in 2008. We banned single-use plastics in 2018, and we have a very science partnerships and education are at the core of what we do. So this is what HX is about. And this will hopefully come through when you sail with us, but also through the discussions we have now. I'm very lucky to be joined by my good friends and also colleagues, Karen Strand, who's our VP of Expedition Development, who's working in planning and working on new adventures for us all to have on our ships, and also Dr. Verena Moraldi, our Chief Scientist. So it's very much a core team. Years and years of experience to be able to share their experiences of Svalbard with you. So great to have them. As I mentioned, Svalbard, we very much feel like we own Svalbard. Our expedition story in HX started in 1896 with a voyage on SS Lofoten, captained by Otto Sverdrup, who had just recently come off the Fram expedition in the Arctic, taking people up from northern Norway up to Svalbard. As a result of that, as a company, we started building a hotel in Longyearbyen. So we have this amazing history and connection with Svalbard. So we really does feel like home for us. And the experiences of the likes of Karen, who's been going there for years and years and will be able to share some magic moments with you. All our trips as I mentioned, are really based around mindful adventure. We really want to make these voyages count, have a sense of purpose and meaning. And with that, majority of our guests, and many of you have traveled with us before, are very curious about the places we sail. And we really aim to bring the place alive, not just what you see, but also the hidden secrets, to bring out what's in the water, those with our guest scientists as well as our citizen science programs. Svalbard is really unique. Here's a picture of SS Lofoten, but there's an incredible history. Svalbard is this little archipelago north of Norway. It's been the gateway to Arctic expeditions to the North Pole, synonymous with explorers like Nansen, Amundsen, Andre, Nobile, all these household names for those of you into polar heritage. It's the land of the midnight sun when we go there on our ships. So it's really there, up there. We also hope on our sailings to get up to the ice edge, so the Arctic pack ice edge. So it really is a true expedition. You can see on this map you can really see the archipelago of different islands. Earlier in the season, the west coast is available because the rest is iced in. Later in the season, northeast Svalbard and Hinlopen Straits become more accessible. But as with all expeditions, nature is in control. So we try and get you in the best place at the best time with our expedition leaders and captains. The gateway for us is Longyearbyen, which is the most northernmost town in the world. Built on its mining roots, was a mining company town, but now grown into quite a metropolitan city almost, with a university, amazing museum, shops, incredible restaurants. So a really nice place to explore, to start and finish your expedition. So really, you can see I'm already animated. I wish I was there right now, but I will ask Karen to join us. Karen's our head of expedition development, to talk a little bit about the ships that we use in Svalbard. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Tudor. So the two ships that we operate in Svalbard is MS Fram and MS Spitsbergen, because the Svalbard itself is a small ship destination. There are limits to what regulatory we are allowed to have of passengers on board, and right now, from 1st of January, some of you might have heard, there are even more regulations limiting the number of passengers going to Svalbard to 200, also in all protected areas. It used to be on the east side since 2008, but now that has increased. So we've kind of already taken the consequence of that years ago when this came in 2008, that this is a small ship destination. So we have Spitsbergen that can take somewhere between 150, 160 people maximum. And then you have Fram, where I figured out I have spent 5 years of my life on board that ship, who is also, as Tudor says, built for the conditions in these areas, with ice-strengthened hulls and propellers and bulbs and so forth. I'm not going to go more technical into it, but Fram has been going to Svalbard since 2010, so it has a lot of track going to Svalbard. Seen a lot of amazing stuff there, and Spitsbergen has been going there since 2016. So also starting to get 9 years under its belt, and having a really nice small ship feeling to going, which makes also the itineraries quite flexible.
And Karen, you mentioned regulation, and there has been a lot, quite rightly, in the news about the changes in regulation in Svalbard. And you're very involved. You're chair of AICO, which is the Association of Arctic Expedition Cruise Operators. So you're right in the mix, not just representing HX, but also the industry. How is that going to potentially affect and impact our explorers joining us on our ships?
So, Tudor, I think exactly that is where we can say, after 2.5 years of intense work with the government entities, when these 43 landing sites were chosen, and the back and forth we had with them, is that we will see very little change in the pattern of the ships. And we also saw that during what we call Derby Day in the 15th of January, when the ships booked all their sites. The pattern from last year, when there were no restrictions, and to now for 2025, were very similar. I mean, some of the similar sites, because the most used sites are still open for us in the protected areas. I think what we will see, though, is that some of the sites that now are not land, you can't land there, will be used for water-based activities, because that's their best feature in a sense. So so that's what we've kind of seen during the booking process for all the ships, the entire industry, is that it won't impact that much at all.
But would it be
But
fair
that's
to
due to
say,
the work we've done
yeah,
for
yeah.
2.5 years. Yeah.
But would it be fair to say the balance of activities, we're able to give that balance of activities, and the regulation won't change that balance? Maybe it enhances,
Yeah.
and obviously, I think it's fair to say as a company, we're very pro protection, but we're also pro being able to share. Seeing is believing. It's an old cliche, but it's very much apparent in Svalbard.
And to a certain degree, I mean, these regulations came as a result of permafrost disappearing, environmental impact on pristine areas that we as a company also agree with the government in these protection measures. What we did kind of disagree with was maybe 15 landing sites that we would have wanted to have open, but that doesn't have a major impact on it. So we kind of met in the middle, both the government and us. They didn't want to destroy our opportunity to show, and to, as you say, seeing is believing for more than people sitting in the government offices, but but also for the protection of Svalbard. And I wholeheartedly believe that this was the right move. I just wish they had opened 15 more sites. That's all. But it's not. It's not devastating at all. No.
And I think a comparable thing is, the Galapagos, where 97% of the Galapagos National Park, and very controlled, but you can still have an incredible experience, and seeing incredible wildlife and landscape, which of course we can see here, combined with the history.
Yeah, and we have to give credit to the government in the sense that the sites they chose to keep open are some of the most spectacular sites in all of Svalbard. So they didn't hold back on the gems. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to do that. They really didn't. They really gave us those fantastic opportunities. So to still use those sites. Yeah.
No, that's great, because the news and the press and sensationalism. Svalbard is closed. Nobody's going to see anything. So it's great to have your take very much in there.
Yeah.
Seeing these amazing Svalbard reindeer leads us on to bringing Verena in and talking a bit about some of the wildlife we may see. So hello, Verena.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. So yes, the wildlife in Svalbard is just stunning, as it's very clearly stated there. I mean, where else in the world do you get the opportunity to see a fox, an Arctic fox, at the beginning of the Arctic season, covered with this beautiful white coat, which will obviously translate into a summer coat during the season, and then at the end it will have a beautiful grayish coloration. And let's not forget also that the reindeer that you will get to see in Svalbard is an endemic species, so you will only get to see it there. And we also have amazing creatures such as the walrus and the polar bear and seals and Karin, I guess that you have been very often in Svalbard,
Yeah,
having 5 years of your life on the pram only. It counts
exactly.
the trips on the other ships as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Walruses. You mentioned to me that you have seen a change in the presence of the walruses in Svalbard.
Oh, absolutely. What we've seen over the last 10 years is that the walrus population is increasing its habitation on Svalbard itself. It used to be very segregated habitats where the females were on Franz Josef Land, Russia, and then you had the males in Svalbard, and that was there were very distinct few places we could see them, Torellnes and Kapli and so forth. Now
Rather
you
north.
have further north, but and then a few around the Magdalena Fjord area, but that was as far as south as you really saw them, was around 79. But now you see them. Even there has been a huge thing in Longyearbyen over the last few years, where there has been about 5 to 10 haul out walruses close to the port of Longyearbyen. And we see in Pulepynten, we see other places as well where the amount is increasing and females are coming. We didn't see females before. So something is happening there. They are, how should I say it, coming back, or there's a slow increase there, which is very, very encouraging to see.
I think one of the fun things, when the seals in the polar regions, but how big the walrus is. The male
They're
walrus
massive.
is ginormous. Yeah.
And you know, when I've spoken to a couple of these kayak expeditions that's been up in Svalbard over the years, and what they've said is that, when they were going to paddle around Nordöstlanda, or they were going to paddle up around Spitsbergen, it was not the polar bear they were afraid of, because they could paddle away from them, but the walrus would basically just come on top of their kayaks if you weren't careful. So I mean, and prolonging to that, that's why our measures when we take our guests out are very, very high, so that we do not start kayaking in Torellnes, for example, where we know that they're patrolling the beach. It's just not happening, because that's not safe.
Yeah. We're going to talk about safety in a minute.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about polar bears, because
yes,
that can be a massive highlight. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But we'll move on to the wildlife that doesn't move so much, the flora. Verena.
Yes. So as you may know, the vegetation in the Arctic or in Svalbard is Arctic tundra. So we don't have any trees or very high vegetations. Nevertheless, there are over 180 species of vascular plants, tons of moss species, over almost 400 species of moss species. And then lichens and fungi, we have 700 species of each of those families as well. So there is a huge variation in the vegetation. And as Tudor very properly mentioned when we were preparing for this chat with you guys, if you get to see the purple saxifrage, that will be the highlight of the vegetation observations during your trip. But then again, just be aware that it's very low vegetation, ground level vegetation, nonetheless extremely beautiful and also very colorful.
I think that those colors that you see on the land,
I agree.
unlike any other area, are incredible.
Yes.
And I think, I first went to Svalbard 35 years ago.
And you want to say that?
I know, it's getting really old.
Right.
But still, the colours that you see really are breathtaking. And it really, that contrast between the purple and the moss campion with the glaciers and the blues and the geology,
And the
that
greens
contrast.
and yellows
Yeah.
and oranges
Yeah.
from the lichens and everything is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and you
Yeah.
don't really get that in other places.
Nope.
No, and I think that's what surprised most of us when we came there first time and we saw
Yeah.
this low lying, and it was like these thick little dense
Pods.
concentrations
Yeah.
as well, right? These pods in a sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
You
agree.
expect the barren desert, but it's not at
Oh
all.
no,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Isolated, but when you see the wildlife, the flora is incredible. Okay, I'm conscious we're not talking too much. That's what we're here to do. But we've got a bit to cover.
Conscious of time.
So moving across, Karen, ice.
Ice is nice. Let me just say that. I love ice. It's well, manageable ice. Let me say it that way. So I mean, this kind of ice is amazing. But what we have kind of, I would say, improved in our future itineraries starting from this year is that we actively are saying that, okay, let's see if we can find the ice edge and see it, because during the summer, what we've seen with climate change is that seeing fjord ice in Svalbard is getting increasingly difficult. So it's the west coast is very bare from early on, and you have this month of like half of June where you see it in Hinlopen and so forth. But going to the ice edge and seeing the sea ice stretching as far as you can see, knowing that your next destination, or if it would be, is the North Pole. And we do a lot of edutainment / education around ice, because it's really important to understand the dynamics and the importance of ice. What does glacier ice have that makes it so special, and why is it necessary? For example, you will most likely only see seals around glaciers because they well up a lot of nutrients and so forth. So ice have so many facets. Yeah. I'm
I
not
think
going to keep going.
you hit on a little bit, but I'll maybe expand on it. Is that climate change is a really big factor. What we do, particularly in the Western world, there are changes. We have storms, we have floods, but the change and the magnifying effect in the polar regions in climate change, and the change in the movement of glaciers, receding glaciers, the change in the pack ice is really evident. These are warming hotspots, and we are seeing change. And that is very evident, and that is part of our science and education program, because we would really like you, our fellow explorers, to sort of understand that and relate to the changes in the Arctic, and how we can potentially change and think about what we do back at home, and the impacts of what we have. Which really brings me on to the next slide, which is an amazing picture of a polar bear. But again, Karen, talk about polar bears.
Yeah, to talk about polar bears. Yeah. So polar bears is how should we say it? It's an opportunistic opportunity to see the polar bear in its right habitat. And Svalbard has about as many, well, they actually have more polar bears than people. There is 2,500 people in Longyearbyen, and the estimated amount of polar bears in the Svalbard territorial waters is around 3,000. So what we're seeing from a scientific point of view, because they're not hunted anymore, like in Canada and Greenland, is that the population is quite stable. However, these are wild animals, and they do not come forward for show. We cannot order them for 12:30 and say, oh, here we go. It's very important to protect them. And what the government was very keen to say when the new regulations of distance came in, of not actually putting distances rather than just state do not pursue, lure, or attract, was that getting used to humans is not a good thing for the polar bear. So because they do change patterns and behavioral patterns if we are close, and if we're close a lot. Doesn't mean that we don't see them, doesn't mean that we do not have fantastic experiences seeing bears. So from June 30th, until June 30th, the mothers are out with their cubs, which means that they are in a very vulnerable period. The cubs are at their smallest, which means that the distance will be 500 meters. We have to stop at 500 meters if we see a bear, and then don't move further. Then after June 30th, 1st of July, it decreases to 300 meters. And believe you me, you can see a polar bear really, really well from 300 meters. It is not binocular distance. It's not a feeling that you don't see it. You see it really well from a ship's deck. But let me just point out as well, the safest and the best place to be when we do observe polar bears is actually the ship's deck. Then you can relax and we can have a good monitored experience. And there were questions about if we look for them. Yes, we do. We look for them 24/7 because, first of all, we need to do it from a safety point of view, but we also do it for the fact that we know that most of our guests are coming to see the big white. But we are very keen on doing this in a I would say in a responsible way, that we do not disturb, lure, or pursue. We are here on their terms. We are the visitors,
and also respecting their habitats and their way of life without changing that is very important, I think. But we do have to remember they're endangered species. They are declining, and climate change has had a big effect on their habitats. But it is obviously something that we all would like to see, but we of course cannot guarantee seeing them on a sailing. But Karen mentioned about the safe place to view them from. When we are on land, safety is really important, one with the walrus, but also the polar bear. So our teams are trained, and maybe Karen, I'm picking on you now, Karen, but I think this is a picture of you, actually.
It is.
That is in Palanderbukta, yes. I remember the day.
But would you like to just talk us through about safety management ashore, particularly for... So our people that are listening to us, we can give some security to the fact that we're behaving responsibly and in a safe manner.
We train out through the year to be prepared for the Svalbard season. This is something we take. I think this is maybe the most. This is the training we put most effort in, apart from first aid in our company, because the impact can be very, very bad. And we, over the last 25 years or so, there have been 2 shootings of bears in Svalbard related to tourism industry, which is nothing when you look at how many has been shot because of coming too close to Longyearbyen, or being rampage at the huts of people, or just other reasons. So we are an industry in good repute in that sense, and we would like to keep it that way. So we go to the shooting range every time we are in Longyearbyen to train our skills with a pulse and without a not without a pulse, but with a lower pulse. And we when we do the landings, we are obliged through IECO and IECO rules that we have self-inflicted on ourselves as an industry to not put more than 100 people ashore. We very often do either what we call a perimeter landing, where we have these bear guards in the outskirts of the landing sites, and you can walk kind of freely within that perimeter. Or we do guided landings where you follow 2 bear guards on a a little journey over the landing site. So we have worked and perfected and done a lot of work with this since 2010.
And as a company, we've never had to shoot a bear because there is that part of one of the very important things is listening to our guides. So if we have had to evacuate a landing and get all our guests back on board very quickly to be safe. So that's a very, very important part of operations in the Arctic, not just in Svalbard. Very much part of the history of Svalbard is hunting and trapping, and that was polar bears, but also seals. And this is we have this great photo to embarrass you, Karen, but looking very happy. Please tell us where you are.
Oh my God, I have a penguin hat in the north. So introducing species to the north now. Yeah, this is in Texas Bar. This is actually up in the north. It's called Liftefjorden, close to the Monaco Glacier. This is a hut that is actually in use, especially during the winter when people from Longyearbyen go across the glacier and all way up on skidoos and use it. But it's also used by the locals in summer, for example, because they are actually allowed to use most of the huts for recreational use if you have a permanent address in Longyearbyen. So that's a great perk for anyone who is there. So so this was one of our landings in this is early on as well. I can see that from my signal gun bag. This was one of the first years. Where we conducted a landing there, and I don't think it was this landing, but we had a landing there on another occasion where we actually, because there are a lot of small islands around this area, and a bear came swimming over from one island over to the other. We saw him kind of midway and used one of our polar circles to kind of cut him off. But smart little youngish little devil he was, and managed to kind of escape around us and came behind a hill, but we had already started evacuating. So the last guest, I think, was on board the polar circle when he stood on top of the hill about 500-600 meters away and wanted to come down. But believe you me, you want to see polar bears, but you do not want to see them in this way. This creates a lot of stress on guests. They do feel that they feel safe, but they also have a lot of stress in their body when this happens. So why we are pointing out that a polar bear encounter or polar bear viewing, we put a lot of effort in doing that in a way that is enjoyable and not stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally, and of course, having a rifle is a last resort.
Absolutely.
For our teams, but
yeah, our best tool as polar bear guard is our binocular. That's what we have avoided so many incidents with that, using our binoculars correct. So we train on that too.
Absolutely. And then like other areas in the world and all our expeditions, we offer a kayaking excursion where you can join our activity guides to get a totally different perspective of the surrounding area. Here, when you're kayaking amongst ice, you hear the ice popping and melting, releasing thousands of years old air. But yeah, an amazing different perspective and experience. As well as our off-ship activities, we also have a lot going on board in terms of education. So I'll just ask Verena to talk us through some of these.
Yes, of course. And just as a side note, Karin mentioned that the binoculars are a very good tool for staff. It can also be your best friend during a cruise to Svalbard, because it will allow you to get closer to the wildlife and to watch it in a more detailed point of view. And of course, you can join the on-deck guiding done by our staff every day. From deck, you will be invited to do some wildlife spotting, for example, or have a photography session there. We will also offer several lectures that will cover the most relevant topics to Svalbard, like the geology and go deeper dive into the wildlife and the vegetation. We will have, on some occasions, specialists, guest lecturers, guest scientists joining the trip. And you will be able to join our discovery sessions in the Science Center, where we will go even deeper into the topics covered during the lectures. We also offer a series of citizen science projects. These are only some examples. We do cloud observations using the Globe Observer application from NASA. We will perform Secchi disk measurements to contribute to a worldwide citizen science project determining the distribution and abundance of phytoplankton around our oceans. And we will also invite you to participate in our science boats, where we will collect some oceanographic data. If you want to participate in the citizen science projects, I encourage you to come prepare for this. And for that purpose, we are sharing here a few QR codes to the most popular citizen science projects that we run on board the ship. So you have eBird. If you are a bird lover, you may already know this application, which you can also combine with the Merlin ID in order to get a lot more information about what you are observing. And this app is really amazing, because if you are not so strong with your birds, or even if you hear a bird but not see it, you may be able to identify the bird just by its singing, thanks to this amazing application. Another one that I really love is iNaturalist, which will allow you to upload anything living to this platform and help you identify it. And at the same time, will allow you to keep a record of all the things that you observed during your trip. So scan them, download the applications, and come ready to do a lot of science.
And these are shared in the chat, but also things you can do around the world. So get involved. That call to action to be a citizen scientist. I'm aware there have been lots of questions, so I want to be able for us to continue the discussion over questions and bring in some of our specialists. But as always, but I'm told there's never a better time to book a trip to with us to Svalbard. We currently have an offer on 15% off all sailings. You can get a further 5% if you are part of our HX Explorer loyalty program, which you can sign up before you buy. So that's an extra little top tip to get an extra 5%. If you are already a loyalty member and you've earned your points, you're a level 2 explorer, you can get a further 5%. So the more we sail, then we're helping you do that. We also have some offers for solo supplements, 45% off. And of course, at the moment, there's also the price promise. So never a better time to buy. And of course, our teams are there to be able to support and help you in that. Here are the details for our main markets. Of course, we do have people elsewhere in the world to help you, but these are the main ones. Again, these are shared, and I'm sure the fact that you're tuned into this webinar fireside chat, you already have our details. But I'm going to move over now to questions and answers. We have a team led by Jesse and Olga in the background who have hopefully been answering your questions before as we've gone. But also I will now stop sharing my screen and ask Jesse to join it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tudor. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse. I am one of the customer service representatives working out of our office in Tallinn, Estonia. And we do have a lot of good questions today. Of course, as you might expect, most of them are focused around polar bears.
Yeah.
But there's a,
I expected that.
there are a handful of other questions that are also really important, relevant to everybody as well. So I might do a little bit of summarizing in my asking. But let's go ahead and get started. So first off, everyone is curious about the best time of year for this and the best time of year for that. So in general, I mean, the best time of year is when we're there, of course. We wouldn't go any other time. Is there any, for flora and fauna in general, are there any noticeable seasonal differences from beginning, middle, or end of season that might help people decide which dates they might want to book?
For Flora, yeah. When you've come as far as we start in June, when we've already come to June, there's not a lot of snow left on the ground on the west coast. There could be a little bit on the east coast, but again, on the east coast, like Nordaustlandet, for example, there is more barren ground there because that has been an ice. What is it, Tudor? It's an ice. My brain is not working right now. So you have Bråsvällbren, which is an ice cap. Here we go. Got it. Popped in. So the ice cap that has been melting on Nordaustlandet is not very old. So it means that it's kind of new ground. So it's not a lot of vegetation there. When you come down to Edgeøya and Barentsøya again, then it becomes a lot more floral. So June, July, August, perfect times for flora.
And I think that's one of the beauties of the voyages. We're going from Longyearbyen generally north. I know we go south as well, but you see that variance from further south to the north, which is a lot more barren. So you do see that, and I think through the summer season we're there. The best time is when you're there, but there's no real variance because the summer season is quite short, and we're there for a relatively short time in the peak summer.
Yeah,
excellent.
It all explodes in those months.
Yeah,
exactly.
They have a very short window. They need to do everything within that short time. Yeah,
and that it's I would say that generally covers everyone's questions too regarding when. I do have one question about where, though. How would you describe the difference with potential polar bear sightings and how dramatic the ice escapes are between Svalbard and Baffin Bay?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say if you look at Baffin Bay, you know this, Tudor, as well, and Verena, is that the chance of seeing a bear is about the same. We've been looking in the fjords and seen nothing, and we've been looking in the fjords and seen something, and the same is in Svalbard as well. We can have, for example, years when there is a number of bears that haven't moved north with the ice. So the fjord bears kind of differ. So there could be two bears that just roam around in Hornsund. There could be two bears that roam around in Hinlopen Strait and especially in Frimannsundet, for example. I know I'm name dropping now, but get used to it. You're going to Svalbard, so you need to get used to this. And that I just want to say, what is the best time to see wildlife in general, as was asked for? There is not in the Arctic like in the Antarctic where you have big pods, the only kind of animals that live in groups in Svalbard is the walrus, and then partially the reindeer kind of stick together 10 or 15 or 5 or whatever. But the rest of the animals, the Arctic fox, the polar bear, and so forth, they are loners. So I mean, what Verena said about of binoculars, yes, it is super important to have it to even spot the wildlife, because the wildlife is kind of the loners, and then you have these bird cliffs that are on the east side, for example, beautiful, and the landscape moves from alpine landscape in the west to a lot more flattish, hillish landscape in the east because of the ice cap that has melted and basically formed the landscape that way. Great for geologists like Tudor.
I love it. Yeah, it's raw. You see it in its bare rock.
You
and I think
you really do.
With Baffin Bay, comparison, it's quite a good comparison because they're both high Arctic, but Baffin Bay is the big, if you like, sea between Greenland and Arctic Canada. So you do get a lot of variance there. But I the interactions and the protection of nature, I think, in Svalbard is higher but you get a lot more community and involvement with the locals, the Inuit, in Baffin Bay. So that there are differences.
But they're also hunted, Tudor. They're also hunted.
Exactly. So there are differences. So I think you need to do both.
Yeah.
That's
We go to Svalbard first and get it how it should be. And then go to Baffin Bay and say, this is how you should do it. Because the conservation of the polar bear in Svalbard is an example to be followed, I have to say.
So one thing we haven't really touched on, we've talked a lot about land animals, and I suppose you could, or you do, classify a polar bear as a marine animal as much time as they spend in the water. But what other marine animals could we expect to see?
Whales.
What kind of whales?
Humpbacks. I saw my first blue whale in Svalbard.
Oh,
yeah.
They're not super
I'm
common,
still
but they are
searching for mine.
Yeah. But they're not in abundance. But
No,
they are more frequently seen now than they used to be. So there is also something happening there, Verena.
And then you could also say that you would be able to see belugas, but that would be really a lucky thing. They are very.
I think we're seeing more belugas now than we used to. Again, I think one of the ones that we see a lot as an Arctic whale is the narwhal, but they are very sensitive to noise, so very, very hard to see. So
I've seen it once.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And also
more times than I have.
But then again, I tell you that the narwhal, like Tudor says, is now in the eye of the scientific community and the governments, both in Greenland and in Canada, and definitely in Svalbard, because they're not very much in Svalbard. But there is protection measures, like Scoresby Sound now is more or less closed in the areas where they are. They're still hunted in that area, but the decrease is staggering. That is a species that is really on the endangered list.
But we do see some of the larger whales, humpback whales, occasionally fin whales. So we do see those. But again, binoculars are your best friend.
And being out on deck as much as possible.
Does anyone? Now I realize no one's a professional photographer in the chat here, but does anyone have a lens recommendation?
Frustrated.
Verena is the best of us.
Well, one of my favorite lenses is a 70 to 200, for example. And I am a Nikon user, so the 70 to 200 is one of my favorite lenses because it really gives you a nice range of focal lengths. But please do not forget to bring a short size as well, a 45, 50, or even a smaller zoom, so that you can capture those amazing landscapes. But if you are a birder, then bring a 300 or 400 is a good it's a good lens.
Playing with black and white is also really effective with the geology and the glaciers. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you were to bring just one lens, maybe the 70 to 200 would be a good compromise to try to get both.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Does there happen to be photography equipment on board that we learn out?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's easy to answer
Okay.
that one. Yeah.
Yep, that's the easy one.
But we do have a photographer on board that will help. Will run classes. Will take photographs. And at the end of the trip, we do a voyage log. So the photographer's best photos will be shared with you to capture those moments. The photographers always love helping people. So whether it's photos with your mobile phone or somebody that's invested in some equipment, they'll be there to help.
Yeah. And phones nowadays also amazing pictures. So
Yeah, I agree.
You can actually get a rather wide variety of lenses that'll attach with a special case.
phones, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You don't often see that though on board.
No, you don't.
No,
That's,
they kind of go old school with a proper camera. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about location. Do we visit or sail past Pyramiden?
No, not necessarily, because that's way in Isfjorden. But we do sail by Barentsburg. So we do see a Russian settlement as we sail by Isfjorden and into Grønnefjorden. So because we focus, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's an important part of Svalbard history that I didn't really mention. In the interest from Russian mining, even the modern geopolitical playing games in the Arctic, and Svalbard is a bit of a focus on that. Obviously, the Svalbard Treaty, signed in the 1920s, with the Norwegian administration, is very much in force. And our voyages tend to focus on the wildlife and history, and we kind of steer clear at the moment from the Russian settlements.
Yeah, it's quite tensed in Svalbard right now, geopolitically.
Yeah. Does that affect our sailings at all?
No, not sailing wise, but it just means that we do not call Barentsburg anymore. We used to do that, but that stopped as soon as Ukraine was invaded and we came out of COVID. We did it before COVID, but not after. So that is kind of the state of the union there. And that's all operators. It's not just us. It's nobody.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that, yes, it is. You mentioned earlier that with the new regulations, there were several, up to 15, I think, maybe, locations that closed. Is that having a large impact on our itineraries, or is it locations that are out of the way?
Yeah, no, those were kind of wishful thinking from a few of us sitting on the committee that worked this out. It was we fought for the important ones, and we got those. Then we wanted to sprinkle those 15 on top, and they gave us one out of those 15. But that I think the one that we will not kind of give up, which is now out, is Kvitøya, because there is nowhere to land on Kvitøya now. Kvitøya has now been closed. But I think we are going to continue that fight because of Andre's expedition, and there is a cultural heritage there that the world should know about. So and should be able to see. So the last word hasn't been said completely yet, but we are actually quite pleased with what we got.
Excellent.
Because we can maintain our operations without a lot of without any discrepancy. When I look at the landings we made on the 15th of January, we have no discrepancies at all.
All right. Excellent. Now, when it comes to landing sites, that's the real expedition aspect of it, with the nature landings and the cruisings and everything.
All but cruising.
And a general concern really is mobility. How mobile do you have to be, even down to somebody who might be mostly or completely wheelchair bound? what would a voyage for them look like?
Doing land excursions for one that's wheelchair bound and is not safe because we have the apparent polar bear danger that and it could be swimming from like if you see in the picture here behind me, you that bear could be swimming across, and we will need to react really quickly. We need to tell people to run, but what is a good experience for people with mobility issues that we focus a lot on small boat cruising, these Zodiac boats that gives you this, and they can go close to land, and they go, where there is maybe a bird cliff as far as the law allows us, and so forth. So there is a way to enjoy outside or outdoors. Not just on deck on the ship, but our Zodiacs, I have to say, is our best tool to be able to enjoy these remote areas. It is completely essential. So
I think the other thing to add to that, Karen, is our ships are built sort of outward facing. So
correct.
The lounge, panorama lounge on Fram, I think is the best on any ship I've ever been on.
I agree.
So being able to enjoy the incredible landscapes and scenery from the comfort of inside on all our ships is amazing. But that panorama lounge on Fram is just something else. So and all our expeditions anywhere in the world, it's up to you as guests, your engagement. We will try and help and fulfill your dreams.
Absolutely.
But as part of that is, how much you get involved, you're very much the limit on that. One of the questions we get quite a lot about Zodiacs is, how mobile do we have to be to get in and out of Zodiacs? And the big thing is being able to sit down and being able to stand up, and that's kind of it. So if you can sit down and stand up, then you're good to go, because that's what we do in the Zodiac. We help you into the Zodiac. You sit down, then you stand up, and you get off and you go. So those side. I think the other thing which we get about Zodiacs and also about ships cruising is how rough are the seas around Svalbard. Like anywhere, we watch the weather, but from my experiences, Svalbard voyages are pretty protected, and we don't get the big seas that we get in the Drake Passage or across Denmark Strait. So that's my experience. Karen, you've been a lot more than me.
Yes, it's a pond.
Yeah.
You hide it. It's a pond. I mean, you might have a little bit of waves when you go out to 2 or 3 meters or something when you go out of Ny-Ålesund up to Sørgata, and then you're inside fjords and you're inside these passages more or less the whole time. So there's not a lot of open stretches except for one night when you're in Storfjorden. But during the summer, it's the weather in Svalbard is, apart from fog, which is exactly why we get the fog, because it's quiet. If there were wind, the fog would go away. So we don't. We very rarely have issues with high waves and all of that around Svalbard. I think that's one of the things that attracts me a lot to Svalbard, because you get
very
to
stable.
Very nice. Very stable. Okay.
Excellent. Nice. So we are, well, technically we're out of time, but I'm going to stretch it a bit. I'm making an executive decision time.
Excellent.
No, I do. I have one more good question that I feel should be asked, but I also want to make a clarification, or Karin, if you or somebody, you had when we were talking about wheelchairs on shore and how it's a safety concern if there's a polar bear, it's everybody run. I don't think we expect everyone to just drop everything and sprint and fight for the boats. How would that actually
No. That might be, my wording was a little bit because we start evacuating before we say run. So we say walk calmly down to the boat. So because we do have at some point, maybe 100 people we need to. So instead of starting evacuating when we see the bear coming closer and closer, we start when we see it.
And we
right?
have those sentinels posted way, way far out, watching in every
Way
direction.
far
Yes.
out. Yeah. So they will, if they are like 600-700 meters away, or maybe sometimes even a kilometers away, the radio goes to the
Hmm.
expedition leader, who starts then, and then they see the bear maybe a kilometers away. So that means that we have 2 kilometers of distance to carry. But that is a 45-minute walk for a polar bear. So it means we need to move, but
Hmm.
we walk, right? We walk and we let people, and if there are people who need help, we are enough guides on the landing site
Nice.
to give you an arm or to give you a hand, so that you feel that your footing is secure, because you are on uneven terrain, you are on moraine terrain and so forth, and not everybody is used to that in their daily life. So, and we are aware of that. So we spot people like miles away if we see them starting to lag behind, or
Mhm.
we see it in their eyes or in their face. We are good at interpreting people. So we kind of
Calm and controlled.
calm and controlled, and we come over to you, and we don't make a big deal about it. We just say, let's go. This is going to be fine. Let's just keep steady
Fantastic.
moving. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so I have one more question. There's some curiosity surrounding our relationship with Hurtigruten Svalbard
Yes.
and how we work with them, or are they competitors? Do they offer a similar or different product? If you could just sort of dive into that a little bit. And I think that'll be the last question for now. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start, Karen, and then you carry
Yep.
on?
Yeah.
Or
And I carry on. Yeah. If
yeah,
you start.
yeah. So as part of our former, when we were all part of Hurtigruten, then Hurtigruten Svalbard was part of and still is part of the Hurtigruten family. Hurtigruten Svalbard runs the hotels, runs the excursions from Longyearbyen throughout the year. We very much work with them very closely. We have an amazing working relationship coming from the same family. But we are now separate companies. HX Expeditions, HX Hurtigruten Expeditions, is a separate company based out of the UK. So we are separate, but we very much have a very long-lasting, strong relationship and work very closely with them.
Mm-hmm. We help out each other when someone needs a little bit of a hand with whatever it is. Like this year, they're getting a new ship. Nordstern is out of business, and we are helping them out with some equipment, and also with guides, because they possess some of the most experienced guides in the industry. Then also they possess the guides that live in Longyearbyen, and we have kind of a silent agreement amongst us that we're not wanting to any of the local guides to go without work during the summer. So if they're not working for us, they're working for Hurtigruten Svalbard. So we kind of share, and that I think is a strength, because we have some of the most experienced guides in Svalbard, those who have lived there, and we have even guides who have lived in Longyearbyen for more than 40 years. So we truly take the local aspect here, and to a certain degree,
and
like
we
what
know
Tudor said.
and we're good friends with most of the people there in
Yeah,
similar positions. So
exactly.
it's like a family reunion when we go there, between our
Yeah.
expedition leaders, captain, everything. So
Yeah.
but we are it's important to say we're separate companies now,
There.
but very good relationship.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps it up. I found two really quick yes/no questions for you. Are there midges?
No.
Are there orcas?
They haven't been very often seen in Svalbard, but sometimes you can see them off the east coast along the ice.
Rare.
But
Okay.
Rare, very rare.
Rare. Okay.
Very rare.
Fantastic. Excellent. So that sums it up for all of the questions. I'll make some clarification for the offers. We there's a lot of questions about the for solo passengers. So we do generally offer a low solo supplement on all of our sailings. For the Svalbard sailings, they're sitting at about 45%. And as we get closer to the sailings, it's usually 4 or 5 months, we start to waive those supplements. Now, the reason it's good idea to book now instead of waiting for that is you get in with that lower supplement, you would be booking under our price promise promotion, which means that when we waive that supplement, you can give us a call and we'll go ahead and match that new price for you. And that price promise is not just for solo travelers, that's for everybody. If you book under our price promise, you can have any new lower price matched. Same sailing, same date, same itinerary, up until 90 days before the voyage. And we are also, yes, we have our new ambassador discount going out. I'm sorry.
Explorers.
That's my old lingo. Explorers. Yes, our HX Explorers discount. I believe, yes, the first one for the new program. So typically if you've traveled with us before, you get a 5% discount on all future voyages. With this new current promotion, it's 10% for existing level 2 explorers. And if you have just recently signed up, you get a 5% discount. So that combined with the price promise and any other promotions that are growing, this is hands down the best time to book. And with Svalbard, it's coming up. So if you want to grab that low supplement for a solo traveler, you don't have long to wait to see if we're going to waive it entirely. But so that's it from me. I'll go ahead. I see I've frozen on the screen. If you guys can still hear me, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
I can still hear you, Jesse. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those clarifications. There will be a survey shared after this, and then when it's processed, the recording of this webinar will go out, so you can listen again if you like, or those that didn't get a chance to watch live will be able to watch it. But we'd like to say thank you very much for listening in. Hopefully giving you a bit more insight into the amazing Svalbard archipelago. And we very much hope to seeing you on board, whether it be Svalbard, the Galapagos, or Antarctica.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yes.
But thank you very much. Thank you.
Join us.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep, bye.
With that, we will conclude our webinar. You will all be directed to a survey. We would love your feedback on what you thought of today's webinar. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye.